Hey, Life Group leaders, Pastor Adam. I hope you're doing well today. You're probably watching this video after going through the Christmas season, New Year's, and so I hope you had a great time with your family and you were able to spend some good quality time, make some good memories with them. So we've been off from life groups for a couple weeks, and now we're jumping back in to the book of Genesis. And so this week we're in Genesis 6 through 7. And we're talking about the flood. We're talking about Noah's Ark. The focus in our book isn't necessarily all the details of the animals and the flood. Really, the focus is on why God brought that flood to be and what that looked like as far as his reaction to sin and judgment and how he saved a portion of his creation. So that's really the focus of today. When you start teaching this, some people may hear Noah's Ark and they automatically think of whatever they grew up with hearing about Noah's Ark. We hear it all the time. So I found our kids' story Bible. You got a picture of Noah, you've got a picture of the rainbow, the ark, and of course there's an animal there, and that's what we usually think about. You may have decorated your kids' nurseries with stickers on the wall. Crib decorations, animals, rainbows, and arcs, and that sort of thing. And so that's really what we focus on. But really, the focus in this books of the Bible rather, is about God. And it's about God's reaction to sin and how he was grieved over sin and what he did about it. Now, I hate to sound dark, but in contrast to what we see in kids' Bibles and baby nursery room decor, it's really a gruesome story. I never really considered it until I heard a great sermon on this years ago, and he talked about can you imagine what it was like on the floodwaters? Think about the animals, the people that died, the death, the darkness. What did it look like when the water came down? All the death and destruction that you would see. And we get a little bit of a different picture of what we maybe grew up hearing about Noah's Ark, and we learn that it's really a story about God's judgment on sin and how justice will prevail. So that's what I want to share with you about this morning. Some interesting things that you probably know about the ark and what God did and what he used Noah and his family to do. It took them about 120 days to build the ark. The ark was 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, 45 feet high, so it was three 15-foot stories, 1.4 million cubic feet. That's about 522 standard-sized railroad cars. Okay, so this was a big boat that God wanted him to build. So he flooded the earth. And, I always grew up thinking about how, it rained for 40 days and 40 nights. So this kind of 40 days thing was in my mind. But when you really do the math and you study this about, when they got on the boat, how long it rained, how long the water stayed on the earth, how long it took for the water to go down before they actually got off the boat. The family, Noah's family, the animals, they were actually on the ark for just over a year. Most people think around 378 days. So imagine being on a boat that long with your family members. You probably just spent a few hours with your family members around Christmas time, and that was probably plenty for you. So imagine 378 days with your family and with all those lovely smelling animals. All right, so this is about God's judgment on sin, and it's about his standard. And there are a few things that I want you to cover in your lesson, and of course you've got freedom on how you want to teach this, and then I think there's a few points of application. So one is that God knows our works and that sin is serious. So God saw what was happening on the earth, and his people, his creation, had become so sinful that the Bible says that he was grieved over sin, that he was sorry that he made mankind. And don't confuse that with any kind of mess up, a mistake on God's part in creation. One commentator I read today said that he was in essence doing a reset, like a ledger and accountant type term. He was resetting and balancing back the way that things should be. So God knows our works. Sin is serious, and God grieves over sin. He was sorry that he had made man. So just as that's a reality, we also need to know that God's justice will occur. Yes, sin has to be paid for, and God's justice will always prevail. Even when man thinks that they are prevailing, God will prevail. But the good news is that God offers grace to undeserving people. The Bible talks about that there was so much wickedness, but then he found a righteous man named Noah. Now, it doesn't mean that Noah was perfect and sinless. It doesn't mean his family was perfect and sinless, because we know that there is no one that does good, no, not one. All have sinned and fall short of God's glory. But in contrast to the rest of his creation, Noah was a man that feared God and obeyed God and did what he said, even when it made no sense. There had never been rain before, and they're just in the middle of land here, and he tells them to build a boat. And people thought that Noah was crazy, but even in the face of that, he obeyed God. God offers grace to undeserving people. So God keeps his promises. Justice will stand and grace will be available. So a few points of application that I want you to think about. One is consider some unsaved people in your group. A question for them to be, if you were in this scenario and you were in the days of Noah, which side would you be on? Would you be on the side of the people that believed what God was doing through Noah and sought to get on the boat? Or would you be of those people that ridiculed and mocked Noah for what he was doing? Which side would you be on? Another thing, as a believer, pose this question to your class. God asked Noah to do a very difficult thing, and Noah obeyed. And most of the time in our lives, there's something that God is leading us to do that we don't want to do for whatever reason. Maybe there's a conversation we need to have with a family member, with a friend. Maybe there's some kind of action we need to take at work or at home. Ask your class, what hard thing is God asking you to do, and how are you responding? There's a quote, I believe it was Elizabeth Elliot, that said, often when you must choose between two things, assuming the two things aren't sinful, and you don't know which road to take, you're at a fork in the road, choose the hard thing to do. Don't choose the easy thing. And so why would I do that? If neither one leads me into sin, why not just choose the easy thing? Because the hard thing is going to draw you closer to God. You're going to lean more on God. Choose to do the hard thing, not the easy thing. And also in that, God will be glorified. So what thing is God calling you to do? And then third, bring this back around to the cross. God had Noah and his family build this ark. He made a way of salvation, a way to be saved from the destruction that was caused by sin. In the same way, he's offering us an ark of salvation through his son Jesus that came to this earth. Protection from sin, protection from the wrath of sin, from God's justice is offered if we will accept it, if we will believe on Jesus and do as he says. So there's a great opportunity there for you to bring the cross into a passage that you're teaching in the Old Testament. So I hope this helps you out. Your book has a lot of other points that it makes. There's some great teaching tips in the back for some group discussion, things like that. So I hope this has been helpful for you. If you got any questions about this lesson or any other one, I would love to talk to you about that, and I hope to see you soon. Thanks and have a good day.